Honorable External Affairs Minister, Srimati Sushma Swaraj, Secretary West, Shri Navdeep Sarna, Ambassador Gennez Vile, Dean of the African Diplomatic Corps, eminent moderators, distinguished panelists, and friends. It is truly a pleasure for me to welcome you all to the third edition of the India-Africa Editors Forum. From the very outset of the first India-Africa Forum Summit in 2008, the Editors Forum has been an integral part of the summit, and it is easy to see why. Some years ago, I listened to a TED talk by Nigerian writer Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie on what she called the danger of the single story. She recalled how her roommate in the United States had a single story of Africa, a single story of catastrophe. And she made the valid point that like our economic and political worlds, our stories too are defined by the principle of power. How they are told, when they are told, how many stories are told are really dependent on who tells them and from what perspective. The problem with diverse societies like India and Africa is that no single story can do justice to their complexity, their diversity, and their inherent dynamism. And that is why the role of the media becomes so important. The Editors Forum was instituted with the objective of bridging the information deficit that exists between India and Africa by facilitating broader exposure of African media to India and evoking in Indian media an appreciation of African perspectives. The forum is also expected to create a deeper understanding of trends in media growth. There has been a boom in social media in both India and Africa, and rarely has anyone adopted mobile phones faster and with greater innovation than Indians and Africans. How does this impact news gathering and reporting? And in this context, those of you who will be tweeting about this event and subsequently the summit, I would like to request you to please use the hashtag IAFS. Just as India's relationship with Africa transcends strategic and commercial considerations, the deepening cooperation on multiple fronts has redefined the emerging India-Africa partnership. We have made an effort to identify issues for discussion today that are most relevant to the India-Africa relationship. They include convergences between the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and Africa's Vision 2063, emerging economic synergies and the deepening developmental partnership between India and Africa, and how Africa and India can work together for the urgent reforms needed for global governance. We have with us today 43 editors and journalists representing all regions of Africa participating in this forum. More than 400 media professionals from Africa have registered separately for the summit. They are both indicators of the importance the media in Africa has accorded to this growing relationship. On our part, we have tried to match the profile of our media friends from Africa by inviting subject experts and senior Indian editors and journalists to get the most out of this deliberation. We want this to be a genuine dialogue between Africa and India, and a unique one anchored in our own particular needs and concerns. As Kwame Nkrumah said, we face neither east nor west, we face forward. This is the spirit that should animate this Editors Forum. With these few words, I would now like to invite Her Excellency Gennez Vile, Dean of the African Diplomatic Corps, to deliver her opening remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Madam Minister of External Affairs, Madam Susma Sherry, Mr. Secretary General, Ambassador Serna, my colleagues, ambassadors from Africa, the participants of this Editors Forum, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to thank the Indian government for organizing the Editors Forum for the third time. Why I say that? It is because today the media is very, very powerful. And the media has no parallel in transmitting information, whether it is negative or positive. Today, India and Africa is forging forward to fight against injustice, poverty, and other dismals, as they did during the colonial period, and as they did centuries ago. However, there is information deficit in each other's capital. If there is information, at times, it is marred with negativity rather than with positivity. Sometimes the information, the Indian agency, Indian media gets information, or African media get information from media that are not situated in our capitals. They get it from Reuters, they get it from Agence France Presse and other countries. Should it be that way? No, it shouldn't be that way. We, Africans and India, we have a lot to talk about each other, and our stories are not always negative, as Mr. Speaker alluded earlier. Most of the information that is transmitted, either in India or in Africa, is not the positive ones. In fact, in the case of Africa, we are always portrayed as useless or negatively as a continent which is forgotten, which is dark, which is this, which is that, despite the fact that today Africa is surging. In the situation where the rest of the world, the economy of the rest of the world is going down, Africa is growing at the rate of 5.5% on the average. Moreover, if there are 10 fastest growing countries in the world, the majority of them are in Africa. But this story is not portrayed. What is portrayed in many countries is if there is a small clash in one part of Africa, despite the fact Africa is 54 countries, having different cultures, speaking about 2,000 languages, if there is a dispute or a war or anything at some corner of Africa, or if there is a drought or a famine in some corner of Africa, it is portrayed as Africa is this, Africa is that. So that has to change. The same thing in our countries. India today is a growing country, is a friend of Africa, who is supporting Africa and who is mutually working with Africa to surmount the challenges that we have, as you'll discuss in your forum. We're going to surmount together the Sustainable Development Goals, which is eradicating poverty, enhancing education, women empowerment, and so on, and Africa's Agenda of 2063, which is bringing prosperity to the country, enhancing democracy, establishing peace. These are big agendas with which India and Africa are working together. But these are not portrayed. Even in our capitals in Africa, what we are doing together with India is never portrayed clearly, unless there is some negativities of some Indian businessman did this or did that, if it is negativity. So today, I hope, will be the beginning where we would, the Editors Forum will commit itself to bring about the positive aspects. Of course, when there is negativity, of course it has to be also talked about, but not only the negativities, but the real picture of Africa in India and India in Africa should be portrayed. I hope you will commit, and I hope, and I pledge to the Editors' Corner, particularly to the Ministry of External Affairs, that we would work to bringing about a positive, a real, the true picture, not only positive, but the true picture of both countries. This will help us to forge people-to-people relationship. Today, government-to-government relationship between India and many African countries is excellent. Business-to-business relationship is also flourishing. But what is missing is people-to-people relationship. So, once again, I will appeal to you that you would work to forge to bring the true picture of Africa, the real picture of Africa to India, and India's true picture to Africa, as well as to forge people-to-people relationship. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Ambassador. Before I invite the Honourable External Affairs Minister to deliver her inaugural address, let me say a few words about her. Srimati Sushma Swaraj needs no introduction, having served in public life for more than 5 decades. Elected 7 times as a Member of Parliament and 3 times as a Member of the Legislative Assembly of Haryana, she is an advocate by profession. The Honourable Minister holds the distinction of being the youngest ever Cabinet Minister in 1977 and the first woman Chief Minister of Delhi. Through her distinguished career, she has also served as Union Minister for Information and Broadcasting and Minister for Telecommunications, in addition to chairing key parliamentary committees. May I now request the Honourable Minister for External Affairs, Srimati Sushma Swaraj, to deliver her inaugural address.
Dean of African Corps in New Delhi, Her Excellency the Ambassador of Ethiopia, the Secretary in my ministry, Shri Navtej Sarna, our official spokesperson, Shri Vikas Swarup, Excellencies, distinguished guests, friends from the media, ladies and gentlemen. It is my privilege to welcome you all to the India-Africa Editors Forum at the 3rd India-Africa Summit. The unprecedented level of participation in this summit from our friends and partners in Africa is a testament to the deep historical bonds that India shares with Africa. I have come here straight after inaugurating the India-Africa Friendship Park on Shantipat in New Delhi. The saplings, denoting eternal friendship and mutual interaction between our two peoples and societies that we planted today, will need to be nurtured in an environment of mutual understanding. This will need to be fostered in no small measure by all of you friends from the press and media fraternity. This Editors Forum is among the first formal engagement of my participation in the 3rd India-Africa Summit. This is a conscious reflection of the importance that we impart to this forum and participation of our friends from the media fraternity in this event. Many of you have traveled a long way to participate in this historic summit. Looking at the extent of participation, besides welcoming you in English, I will also need to say Karibu in Swahili, Marhaba in Arabic, Bevenu in French, Bem-vindo in Portuguese, and Swagatam in Hindi. This lingual diversity of Africa immediately finds a resonance in India. We are proud to recognize 22 languages officially as part of our constitution. There are countless other local and regional dialects. I say this because this highlights the biggest challenge that our media fraternity has always faced in bringing us closer to each other. I also say this to underscore that our media fraternity has bravely shouldered the burden of making our two societies aware of the commonalities that bind us together within ourselves and with each other. Be it the common fight against colonialism and apartheid in days of yore, or the common challenges of economic development, poverty, illiteracy, and hunger, our media has ensured that we understand each other across languages and across cultures. Excellencies, distinguished friends, this year marks the centenary of the return of Mahatma Gandhi, the father of our nation from Africa. Gandhiji, many say, was probably the greatest journalist of his time. He was able to move the masses in national and social cause, not only by the strength of his message, but also by the way he conveyed it through the weeklies he ran and edited. His first paper was started in South Africa, where in 1904 he had taken over the editorship of the Indian Opinion and published it in English, Tamil and Gujarati, sometimes in the interest of economy running the press himself. Gandhiji looked upon journalism as a means to serve the people. He said in his autobiography, and I quote, "The sole aim of journalism should be service. The newspaper is a great power, but just as an unchained torrent of water submerges whole countryside and devastates crops, even so an uncontrolled pen serves but to destroy. If the control is from without, it proves more poisonous than want of control. It can be profitable only when exercised from within," unquote. He went on to question that, again I quote, "If this line of reasoning is correct, how many journals of the world would stand the test? But who would stop those that are useless? And who should be the judge? The useful and the useless must, like good and evil, go on together, and man must make his choice." Bapu's words carry a deep and abiding resonance. As media practitioners, you carry an onerous responsibility. Even as we recognize the diversity and plurality of our societies and set about further strengthening the long-term partnership between Africa and India, the journalist's role becomes more complex than plain reporting and raising awareness. Even as one reports the facts, it is one's duty to investigate and analyze underlying agendas. Even as we report from conflict and crisis situations, we have the responsibility to avoid looking at each other through a prism of stereotypes perpetuated by biased reports. I believe that the exercise of strengthening relationships between African and Indian news media must be placed on the bedrock of a message of grassroots empowerment. Engagement between the Indian media and their counterparts from the African continent needs to move bottom up. We need new initiatives in the information, communication, media and entertainment sectors. These initiatives should be able to unleash the voices of two of the youngest regions in the world, India and Africa, and harness the power of digital, social and new media platforms to bring about a renaissance of new ideas, thoughts and visions. A case in point is the Pan-Africa e-network that can be used to host an Africa-India media portal and an experts database of journalists, reporters and editors, feeding into demands for information and perspective wherever required. I'm happy to note that the 3 panel discussions on this editors forum, we will focus on themes like 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and Africa's Vision 2063, 2, India-Africa Development Partnership, and 3, reforms needed for global governance. These are all topical issues for which 2015 has turned out to be a seminal year. These panel discussions also reflect important planks of India's continuing engagement with Africa. In the last 15 years, India's trade with Africa has gone up 20 times and today stands at more than $70 billion. India also has a total investment of 30 to 35 billion in Africa. We have managed to extend concessional credit to the tune of $7.4 billion. Most of this credit stands approved and at least half has already been disbursed. Through credit lines, India has partnered Africa in creating 137 projects in 41 countries. Let me emphasize that our basic approach to our relations in Africa has been one of maximizing mutual benefit. We have sought to complement our needs with each other's strengths. Capacity building through programs such as ITEC, in which more than 25,000 scholarships have been provided. Since the second India-Africa Forum Summit remains a key element of that. Our relationship also encompasses a broad range of human endeavors, from agriculture to healthcare, security, renewable energy, and emerging areas like the blue economy. These areas of cooperation reflect the strength of our fraternal relations and our commitment to go boldly together into the future. Ladies and gentlemen, 2015 has been a historic year for pushing forward South-South cooperation. We celebrated the 60th anniversary of Asian-African Conference and the 10th anniversary of the new Asian-African Strategic Partnership at Bandung. We worked together in the finalization of the post-2015 development agenda. The developing countries are also articulating similar views and concerns as the UN celebrates the 70th anniversary of this year. A major issue in this context is that of UN Security Council reforms. The Security Council continues to be representative of a world order of 1945. It is inconceivable that the Security Council today does not have any permanent representation from Africa, which is the largest continent. It is also incomprehensible that India, which represents almost 1/6 of the world's population and has all credentials to be a permanent member of the Security Council, is still out of it. We will need to work together to remove this anomaly, and media has an important role in this. Later this year, in December, we will witness the culmination of the global discourse in two other critical areas, climate change and world trade, in the form of COP21 on climate change in Paris and the 10th WTO Ministerial in Kenya. In both these meetings also, India, Africa, and other developing countries will have to work hand in hand to ensure that our development agenda is not affected. We believe that this third edition of the India-Africa Forum Summit is an epoch-making engagement in this journey of strengthening South-South cooperation in order to promote world peace and prosperity, while accounting for Africa's own aspirations for growth of Pan-African institutions and development programs. Over the next 4 days, at the highest political levels, we will endeavor not just to give a new thrust to our age-old partnership, but also to develop a new paradigm of cooperation, focusing on key areas such as infrastructure, agriculture, energy, innovation, and health. Forums like this distinguished gathering of the India-Africa Editors Forum, comprising senior journalists, reporters, and editors from India and Africa, enable us not only to dispassionately reflect on the past, but also to define the road ahead in tune with the times we live in. With these words, I wish the India-Africa Editors Forum all success. Thank you.
I thank the Minister for her inspiring address. Friends, we have with us today Secretary West, Sri Navteej Sarna, who has played a pivotal role in the organization of this India-Africa Forum Summit. May I now request him to deliver the vote of thanks.
Honorable External Affairs Minister, Dean of the African Diplomatic Corps, Vikas Swarup, our official spokesperson, ladies and gentlemen, and excellencies. It gives me particular pleasure to be here at this event today, the third Editors Forum of the India-Africa Forum Summits. I have very fond memories of being in Vikas Swarup's place when we organized the first Editors Forum in 2008 on the top story of Oberoi Hotel, and I think some of you would remember and recall that. It was the beginning of things, and today we can see that it has grown multifold. Vikas already mentioned the importance of diverse stories that need to come out from India and Africa, so I'm not going to repeat that, but I'm going to quote another very important Nigerian novelist, Chinua Achebe, who said that until the lions have their own historians, the history of the hunt will always glorify the hunter. And journalism is nothing if it is not history's first draft. So the importance of history being written, maybe it's history in a hurry, but it's history's first draft. The importance of history being written with our own voices and our own pens is extremely important. I would take this opportunity to thank Honorable External Affairs Minister for being present with us today and delivering the inaugural address. She has come straight from the inauguration of the Rose Garden, the India-Africa Friendship Park, and I'm sure that this event will lead to as much fragrance as that one will. I may also thank Ambassador Zewide, the Dean of African Diplomatic Corps, who has been valiantly going from one forum to the other for the last 3 or 4 weeks, and keeping the African flag flying and making sure that new ideas are being injected to every discussion, several of which we have had over the last month. I would like to thank all our visiting editors coming from different and distant countries. Thank you all for being here. I hope you will stay with us through the summit and take back not only happy memories, but also ideas for the future. I'd like to thank our Indian panelists, particularly who are present here today, amongst whom are some of our most distinguished senior diplomats, Ambassador Dasgupta, Ambassador Suri, Ambassador Kachchu, and Ambassador Malhotra, some very senior journalists, and the support of the embassies has been extremely important. There's the ambassadors who are present here and those who are not, we owe our gratitude to you for helping us put together not only this event, but the entire summit. With this, I wish the event great success through the deliberations today, and we look forward to meeting you all over the next few days. Thank you.
This concludes the inaugural session. Please join us for some refreshments before we begin the first session.